Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Chapter 968. Guessed right. After the kettle clicked and the last plate found its shelf, the house remembered how to be a house. Reika opened the balcony a hand's width. Night air came in clean and cool, lifting the edge of the curtains. Rachel dimmed the lights to a warm shade that makes wood look like itself. Serafina turned the winter flowers a single degree until the tallest stem framed Luna again. Cecilia snapped a picture of the charter on the console and titled it, very seriously, Charter V1. Rooms are ready, Reika reported. Already 2 steps ahead. Fresh linens. Spare sleep clothes in every size. Toothbrushes labeled. Of course they are, Rachel said, grinning. You're a menace and a gift. Alice glanced at the clock and then at me. Your people came far, she said. Let them stay. They're staying, I answered. We have enough rooms to house a small guild. Or a large family, Rose added, with a look that made something in my chest unclench. Stella stirred under the throw, blinked up at 6 faces, and smiled like the day had decided to try again. Are we having a sleepover? We are, I said. Full deployment. Choose your bedtime guardians. All, she said immediately, then reconsidered. Rotation. But tonight, Mom Rose and Mom Reika, and Luna, and Daddy. Ambitious, Cecilia said dryly. We will need a spreadsheet. I have one, Reika said deadpan. Color-coded. Serafina coughed into her fist to hide a smile. Naturally, we broke into little orbits that made sense. Cecilia migrated to the kitchen island and started a tomorrow breakfast prep list with Rose, fruit washed, batter measured, griddle located. Rachel found the board game cabinet and pulled out a set that looked like chess until it lit up under her hand and rearranged itself into something entirely too cooperative. Luna sat cross-legged on the rug and helped Stella dig pieces out of the box. Tiny lanterns, little blue bridges, a fox token that Stella immediately claimed with the gravity of a treaty. Rules? Serafina asked, taking the seat by the window where she could see the door and the city both. Redeemers versus the board, Rachel said. We clear stain faster together than it can spread. No winners, just whether the map looks kinder when we're done. Acceptable, Cecilia said, intrigued despite herself. House rule, Stella declared, setting the fox on the start tile. Snacks between rounds. Fruit is non-negotiable, Serafina intoned, reaching for her box. Filed, Cecilia said, not looking up from her list. We played. Felt like exhaling. Rachel explained teachable moments with the patience of someone who hates lectures and therefore gives good ones. Luna's golden eyes warmed every time Stella made a clever move she hadn't made last month. Reika somehow handled 3 turns, refilled water glasses, and set 2 more pillows on the sofa without standing up. Rose laughed at a ridiculous card titled, You Forgot to Label the Jar, and then immediately labeled the jar. Between rounds, Alice moved through the space the way a mother does. Writing a picture frame, pulling a stray thread from a sleeve, passing behind a chair like water finding an easier path. She didn't hover. She stayed. We finished the board with the map clear and the lantern tokens stacked in a little tower that Stella insisted was art. Rachel saluted it. We did not lose, she announced. Which is our favorite kind of win, Rose said. Second favorite, Cecilia amended. First is budget passed. Third, Serafina said. First is quiet. Fourth, Rachel countered. First is fruit. Fifth, Luna murmured, eyes on Stella. First is family. Stella yawned. It was not subtle. Reika noticed first because she always does. Bedtime rounds, she said. Brush, book, blanket. Can I show Luna my reading nook? Stella asked. You may, I said, because pretending I'm in charge is a family game we all enjoy. We made a parade of it because why not? Past the framed candid from this morning. Down the hall of guest rooms. 12 doors, 12 sets of fresh linens Reika had actually managed to make smell like calm. Stella's room glowed warm. A window bench with cushions, books stacked in small, neat piles. A little lamp with a dimmer rose had bullied into behaving politely. Luna knelt by the shelf. Choose, she said. Stella considered the options with the care of a magistrate. This one, she decided, handing over a book with a fox on the cover and too many words for a short night. 2 chapters, Reka said, firm but kind. 3, Stella tried. 2.5, Rose negotiated. Because we are generous and you ate your carrots. Orange spears, Stella corrected, already climbing under the blanket. Luna read. Her voice has a cadence that makes mountains listen. Stella's breathing slowed in the space between sentences she held on bravely through the half of the 3rd chapter that Rose absolutely pretended not to count. Reka smoothed the blanket's edge like it had done something heroic and deserved praise. I stood in the doorway and let the sight fix itself behind my eyes. Mom squad, Rachel whispered from the hall, pointing her thumb at her chest. We're up next rotation. Filed, Cecilia whispered back, but she was smiling. We tucked Stella in. She made us promise the following. Pancakes in the morning, another round of the lantern game if her homework was perfect, and that I would not fight any supervillains before breakfast. I will try, I said. That's not a promise, she said, eyes already closing. It's the truth, I said, and kissed her hair. Sleep. Back in the main room, we drew lots for bedrooms with the solemnity of ritual and absolutely ignored the outcome in favor of comfort. Rachel and Cecilia took the corner suites because Cecilia needs a desk and Rachel needs space to pace when she pretends she doesn't. Serafina claimed the balcony-side room and opened the door 2 inches to listen to the city breathe. Rose and Reka took the nearer 2 rooms on purpose. I didn't ask who wanted proximity more. Luna stayed last in the hall and looked at me. I nodded toward the master with the giant, ridiculous bed, which earned me the exact amused look I'd hoped for. Lights at 20%, Reka said to the room, and the lights obeyed as if she owned the building. Alice stayed at the island with a mug, not moving like someone who planned to drive anywhere. I walked over because a boy in me still tries for permission. You're staying, I said. I brought a toothbrush, she replied. Good, I said, because I am learning. We didn't plan a nightcap, but one appeared. 2 slices of cake Rachel swore had baked itself. Fruit parceled out with Serafina's exacting fairness. And a small bowl of nuts that Cecilia labeled, tomorrow 9 a.m. or earlier if needed. We ate standing, as if any chair might suggest sleep, and then laughed at ourselves and sat anyway. Tomorrow, Alice said, finishing her tea. You write 2 lines. I will, I said. Before breakfast, Luna added. Before coffee? Rachel groaned. Especially before coffee, Cecilia said. We'll measure if caffeine corrupts sentence structure. Filed? Reka murmured, amused. We broke for bed the way armies break camp. Swift practiced jokes used as signals. Serafina locked the balcony. Rose checked the stove knob even though it hadn't been lit in an hour. Rachel turned the deadbolt and then tugged it once because redeemers confirm. Cecilia put her slate to charge and made a face when it chimed rest mode engaged like it was scolding her. Reka did one last circuit and put the living room in the exact state of ready she prefers. Alice stood. Good night, all, she said. If anyone cannot sleep, the kettle knows my name. Good night, echoed around the room. A chorus that felt like a protection spell old as language. In our room, Luna set her braid over her shoulder and looked at the oversized monstrosity I bought because my life is not simple. This bed is ridiculous, she said. It is, I agreed. Welcome home. She slid under the blanket and patted the space beside her like she had always been using this bed for the correct purpose. Rest. I joined her. The house hummed with the soft sounds of people existing safely in different rooms. Water in a pipe, someone laughing once in their sleep, the elevator humming somewhere far away and not for us. 2 lines, Luna said, eyes half closed. Now? I asked. Now, she said. Before coffee corrupts your sentence structure. In the dark, I raised my hand to the white space above the headboard. Small, careful, boring on purpose. Tonight, all doors stay shut. I wrote. Morning arrives gentle. The letters took, faint and tidy. The ward made that domestic tone I'd heard once tonight and wanted to hear again. Something in the air eased. The world outside remembered it did not need to shout. Better, Luna murmured. Better, I agreed. Sleep came the way it is supposed to when you have done the small things right. It came for me after it had checked the rooms where the people I love were breathing and counted them all. Came for the house, too. When I woke before dawn, old habits are loud. I found Luna already watching the window, golden eyes reflecting the city's first thin light. Morning, she said softly. Morning, I said. From the hall came a quiet clink that could only be Alice and a kettle. The sentence I'd written the night before still glowed faintly above the headboard like a promise I hadn't broken. 2 more lines, Luna said, and there was laughter in it now. After pancakes, I bargained. After pancakes, she allowed. I lay there another minute and listened to my home make the noises of a place that knows it is full on purpose. Doors opened. Bare feet crossed hall rugs. Someone, Rachel, pretended not to hum a Redeemer work tune. Someone, Cecilia, told a coffee maker to behave. Someone, Rose, argued gently with a griddle. Someone, Reka, won a quiet fight with a stubborn jam jar. Someone, Serafina, cut fruit like it could feel her care. Up, Luna said, nudging me with her foot. Family. Up, I said, and meant it. We had more than enough bedrooms. We had enough of everything that mattered more. And if the world wanted a piece of me later, it could wait until after pancakes. I stood, wrote the morning's first line in the margin between breath and motion. Today we start together, and went to join them. Chapter 969. Pancake Charter 1. I woke to the kind of quiet I've been trying to build for years. No alarms, no runners, no distant sirens gnawing at the glass. Just the soft hum of the penthouse and the steady breath of the woman beside me. Luna was already watching the blue-gray edge of dawn through the curtains. Amethyst braid looped over her shoulder, golden eyes soft. She caught me looking and smiled the way mountains do when morning finally reaches them. Morning, she said. Morning, I answered, and the word held more than it used to. I sat up, rolled my shoulders, and felt the faint ache that means your body remembers working for a living. Lines? She reminded me, warm, not stern. Lines, I agreed. I swung my legs out of bed and stood, barefoot on stone that knows the difference between hurry and purpose. I lifted my hand to the clean white above the headboard. The space Alice showed me how to use, and let my breath count itself. 4 in, 6 out. No tent over the world. No garden. Just the margin where story lives because people choose it. Today we start together. I wrote, small and careful. The letters took like stitches. The ward hummed that domestic note. Quiet, decent, unshowy, and the room settled around it. I added a second line. Alice had asked for 2. Words carry weight only when they are carried kindly. That one landed slower. The hum thickened, then smoothed into place. Acceptable, said a voice from the door. Alice leaned on the jamb in sleep-soft clothes, hair up, a mug in her hand. Somehow she makes good morning sound like a rubric and a hug at once. You're early, I said. I slept here, she countered, then lifted her mug. Tea. In 5, I said, and Luna laughed because she knows my 5 is up for negotiation. We met Alice in the kitchen. Reka had already drawn up a battlefield map labeled pancakes. Stations lined the island like a drill. Batter, griddle, fruit, plates, and the mysterious jar that appears when Rachel is in the room and says I contain joy. Positions, Reka said, sliding me a spatula like issuing a sidearm. Sir, yes, sir, Rachel said, saluting with a whisk. Cecilia breezed in with her slate. Timing. 4-minute cycles. 3 pans, 2 turns each. We want throughput, not chaos. Fruit is non-negotiable, Serafina said, setting down her immaculate box and a knife sharp enough to make the light cautious. Rose flicked the dimmer until the room found the exact shade that makes wood look like itself. Napkins and syrup, she said. I'll form an alliance. Stella shuffled out in a blanket cape, hair a near-feral thicket from sleep, eyes bright anyway. She took one look at the lineup and beamed. We're doing it right. We are, I said. You get flipping duty. Yes. She bounced once, then caught herself solemn. With supervision. Always, Luna said, kissing the top of her head. The first batch went down. Reka poured perfect rounds as if geometry had sponsored breakfast. Rachel narrated the art of the flip with the zeal of someone who once evangelized lantern maintenance to bored rookies. Cecilia called time like a conductor. Serafina sectioned oranges so precisely Stella declared them sun wheels. Rose tested 5 syrup brands and immediately declared 3 of them liars. Alice watched like she was memorizing how the room works. She didn't take command. She corrected a pan's heat with 2 fingers and set a stack of plates to the exact left they wanted without me knowing I wanted them there. Charter V1 is on the console, Cecilia reported between cycles, tapping her slate. Article 7, choose boring first, has been bolded. Good, Alice said. Boring builds. Boring tastes like pancakes, Stella declared, flipping one perfectly and nearly falling off her stool with pride. The kitchen applauded because it mattered. We ate at the round table, socks and smiles, and a growing number of syrup packs that had earned Rose's respect. Stella arranged her plate like a mosaic, protecting one short stack from a rogue strawberry with a fork perimeter. Agenda of the day, Cecilia said, unable not to run a meeting even on a quiet morning. Family time, training time, rest time, and mom dates, Stella added, serious. She held up a little grid drawn in colored pencil, blocks labeled with names and activities. Mom Rose, Blue Rose Botany. Mom Reka, Cooking Basics. Mom Rachel, Redeemer Puzzle Walk. Mom Cecilia, Budget Game. Mom Serafina, Balcony Tai Chi. Mom Luna, Reading Nook plus Pure Light Science. Daddy, Supervisor. Ambitious, Reka said, hiding a smile. It's a Rhoda, Stella said. Mom Rachel said Rhoda makes it sound official. Rachel nodded. It does. Also, Puzzle Walk has a fresh route. We will not get stuck behind the angry hydrant again. The angry hydrant made a point, Serafina murmured. It was wrong, Cecilia said, without heat. Alice tapped her mug to my forearm. Lines, she said. We took 10 minutes at the island while the others cleaned. She slid me a folded sheet of paper like contraband and set a pen where my hand would find it. Copy work, she said. Small verbs, strong spine. Write these 3 until your wrist gets bored. I unfolded the paper. The verbs were plain and perfect. Hold, name, close. Below each, a short sentence that made the verb carry work. Hold the door for the least name the law and not yourself. Close the page only when the ink is dry. I wrote. The first line felt like lifting a weight for the first time in a while. The second found a groove. The third settled so cleanly the ward almost purred. Again, Alice said, and I did. And the second set went down smoother than my pride expected. First lesson, she said when I finished. If the world will obey 1 line, do not write 2. Leave space for life to happen inside your law. Yes, ma'am, I said, and she swatted my arm with the folded paper, amused. By mid-morning, the penthouse had turned into 6 small classrooms. Stella and Rose sat cross-legged on the balcony mat with a tray of cuttings and a notebook titled Blue Roses Say the Truth. Rose showed how to coax a pattern to the surface. Stella explained the math to it like a shy friend. On the far side, Serafina led slow balances that looked like water learning to be glass. Rachel and Stella's walk took them down the private hallway, where Rachel had tagged mundane objects with chalk marks and asked Stella to find the stain in the story. Stella found 3, missed 1, and argued the 5th into being a test case. Rachel beamed. Cecilia's budget game started with play money and ended with Stella proposing a pancake subsidy for mornings after missions. It would raise morale, she argued, which made Cecilia look like someone had given her a puppy that can file. Reka's cooking lesson produced a tray of slightly uneven scones that nevertheless made the room smell like patience. Luna's science block in the reading nook had Stella building a cardboard model of mana flows through a domestic ward while Luna adjusted the light and let Stella do the thinking. I floated, present, not hovering, learning how to be the kind of gravity that doesn't pin. At noon, we declared a truce with productivity. Serafina cut more fruit. I made sandwiches on the theory that a hero who slices bread evenly is a better hero. We ate scattered around the living room, wherever our plates felt like they belonged. My slate buzzed on the console. 1 polite priority ping. Varus. Warrants ready. The message read. Your presence requested this afternoon. I showed Alice. She arched an eyebrow that said, and? Boring way, Rachel murmured, already rinsing her plate. Law beats noise, Cecilia added, standing. Rose checked Stella's face for disappointment and found curiosity instead. Observation only, she said. Field notebook, Luna added. Reka was already 2 steps ahead. 2 vehicles, she said. Stella rides with Luna and Rose. Rachel leads entry. Cecilia runs paperwork. Serafina floats. I handle perimeter and retrieval. Arthur, sentences. Yes, I said. I don't need to be a hammer today. The world has plenty. I need to be a line. We geared up without making it look like gearing up. Not armor, sensible shoes, jackets that won't snag on old banisters, slates set to the right quiet channels. Alice watched and said nothing, which is approval. In the elevator, Stella leaned into Luna and peered over her field notebook. She'd drawn a tiny lantern in the corner and labeled it, Hope. I wanted to frame it and also nail it up in the worst parts of the city. Ready? I asked her. Yes, she said, fierce and small and 12. We're going to do boring so hard. Exactly, I said. As the doors opened on the garage level, we stepped into the hush just before work and found 2 dark sedans waiting. Unmarked. Clean. Boring on purpose. Grandmaster, Varus's voice crackled through the garage intercom. Annex staging in 10. On our way, I said. I looked back at the round table, the flowers, the faint words above the molding. This is a home scene. I wanted that sentence to ride with us. We do this the boring way, I told my family. They nodded, and together we rolled out. The elevator doors closed, and the day changed shape. Chapter 970. Pancake Charter. 2. The annex smelled like fresh paper and old furniture. Comforting, competent. I like rooms that know what they are. Varus met us in the lobby with 3 warrants and not a single dramatic flourish. Points to him. Clean entries, he said. handing me the envelopes. The court is watching. Good, I replied. We love an audience for boring. Rachel grinned. Reka's eyes were already on the map board. Serafina stood where she could see both doors without looking like a statue. Rose set a bottle of water on the nearest desk and labeled it Arthur. Luna took Stella's hand and passed her a pencil sharpener shaped like a fox. Staging complete, Reka reported. Brief, I said, opening the first envelope. Address 1, second floor office over a bakery. Accountant. Low risk. Address 2, townhouse with history. Expect a passive coercion ward at the threshold. Address 3, discreet office, notable surname. No shouting. Paper first, feelings last. Stella, in the observation seat, wrote that last sentence into her notebook in large, careful letters. Paper first, feelings last, she read aloud, impressed with us for thinking of it. I hid my smile. We rolled. Address 1 was textbook. I knocked, identified us, and held up the 2 truths that make decent people open doors. Paper and patience. Magistrate's warrant, I said, reading the header calm and clear. We're here to review records linked to Operation Emberfall. We will not search beyond the scope. We will catalog what we touch and return what is not evidence. The bookkeeper's shoulders sank with relief. Guilt has a shape, this wasn't it. He opened the door. Rachel and Reka entered like sunlight and a calendar. Arthur stayed near the threshold, hands in pockets, reading the room like a sentence he might have to fix. We moved through the steps we've practiced 100 times. Rachel cleared the air with that Redeemer hush she carries in her wrists. Reka boxed ledgers in order I read each line of the warrant out loud as we moved sections. So the room heard what we were and weren't doing. It matters. The law isn't a hammer, it's a promise. Anything that isn't yours? I asked the accountant. Just the bakery smell, he said. Embarrassed by his fear and grateful, we didn't make him pay for it. We tagged the place clean, 48H, and left the bakery an anonymous donation because their bread smelled like responsible mornings. Stella drew a tiny stamp in her notebook and wrote, Boring one. Address 2 tried to be clever. The townhouse had an excellent view of a magistrate route and the kind of paint that says, We never do anything wrong. I don't like paint that talks. Rachel frowned the second we hit the landing. Pressure, she said. Serafina lifted her palm toward the door. Polite coercion, she diagnosed. Nudges compliance, hides strain. I looked at Arthur. He stepped to the frame and raised his hand to the white space above the lintel. No garden, no drag, just his mother's lesson drawn in breath. No coercion in this room, he wrote. The sentence took with the sound of paper smoothed across a desk. The pressure evaporated. The latch clicked, not theatrically, just honestly. The man inside had the exact look I'd expected. Ready to bluster, ready to perform a grievance, ready to throw his surname like a shield. Then his face did a new math. He sat down instead. Magistrate's warrant, I said again, same tone as before. We do not reward bluster with bluster. He nodded once, surly but sane. Reka opened a safe without scratching paint. Inside, a ribbon ward pretending to be a personal seal. Rose set a blue curve across it. Simple as kindness, and the ribbon stopped pretending. Rachel bagged the contents with gloved efficiency. It is a joy watching professionals refuse to be impressed by nonsense. These are copies of magistrate stamps, I said, flipping a false seal with a pen tip. Your counsel will likely want to talk about who gave you these and how much you paid. He stared at the floor and did not answer. Silence is an upgrade from lies. I logged it as a win. We tagged the study clean 48H. A neighbor stuck their head out on the stairwell and found 5 women, 1 man, and a child with a notebook doing nothing dramatic. Their face relaxed. They went back to their life. I breathed easier. Back in the van, Stella drew a line over a doorframe and labeled it Words 1. Luna kissed the top of her head and murmured something about verbs having spines. I could get used to this version of my days. Address 3 was the messy one. Discreet office. Polished nameplate. A surname that makes receptions tilt just so. The receptionist's smile was the kind that wants to be helpful to the winning side. We are not sides, I said gently. Arthur stood just behind my shoulder, the way he does when he is being a line and not a blade. I like that version of him best. We took the elevator, 8 floors, and walked a carpet that did not deserve its confidence. The door at the end had the surname in engraved brass. Rachel knocked. I read the warrant again, calm and even. The man who opened it had the same haircut every ambitious coward has in this city. He glanced at Arthur. His hand flexed. I watched his throat work around options and excuses. Then he did something rare and sensible. Let's not perform, he said, stepping back. Please come in. Performances are expensive. Truth is cheaper in the long run. We entered. No shouting. No drawn blades. No righteous speeches. We asked for the files, he produced them. We checked the seals, they were wrong in that fastidious way that tells you who trained the forgers. I logged chain of custody times, stamped receipts, and watched a man realize that boredom is lethal to the kind of corruption that feeds on spectacle. Do you have anything to say for the record? I asked when we'd finished the first pass. Yes, he said quietly. I knew better. That will help, I said, and meant it. We tagged the room clean, 48H. On the way out, the receptionist's smile had turned human. Small, honest, a little scared. That's the shape of mornings I can work with. At the annex, Varus took custody with a grateful nod and the look of someone who appreciates a dull stack of evidence more than a dramatic arrest. Nicely boring, he said. The court will be pleased. We live to underwhelm, Rachel replied. Some of us, Serafina murmured. Most of us, Reka corrected deadpan. Stella passed me her notebook in the van. On the last page, she'd drawn 6 lanterns around a little house and written, "We won by not being loud." Accurate, I said, and initialed the corner like a proud teacher. Evening pulled the light low by the time we returned to the penthouse. The house let us in like we'd gone to the market. The charter rested on the console. Above the molding, a faint line still hovered. Tonight is for rest. There was an envelope under the frame. No crest. Clean paper. Inside, one line in tidy pink ink. Do hurry, Arthur. Signed A. Arthur said it beneath the charter without comment. I logged no breach, postal route used, because some days the difference matters. 2 more lines tomorrow, Alice said, turning on the kettle. She did not ask, she scheduled. Before breakfast, Luna added, smirking at Rachel. Before coffee, I said, because my job is to ensure equality of suffering. Betrayal, Rachel muttered, but her smile gave her away. I was about to propose a civilized argument over pancake rota when the air changed thin, high, wrong. The ward on Arthur's palm vibrated like a plucked string. Luna's head snapped to the windows. Serafina froze. Rachel's hand dipped toward a lantern she wasn't wearing. Reka's gaze tightened, calculations replacing calm. Arthur crossed to the glass in 3 steps. I followed because my job is to translate awe into plans. Far beyond Avalon's last towers, past the long river bend and the gentle hills that are only gentle to people who've never fought on them, the horizon changed its mind. A dark line pushed up from earth to sky like a blade deciding to meet a throat. A tower pierced the clouds, thin at the tip, wide at the base, covered in a shimmer that didn't want to be seen. It did not erupt. It asserted. The light around it looked like law mispronounced. What is that? Stella whispered, notebook forgotten in her lap. No one answered. For one measured heartbeat, our city pulled in breath and did not let it go. Chapter 971. The tower. The tower didn't glow. It just kept growing until the clouds had to make room for it. I let gray rise. Cold slid along my nerves. Space thinned, and my vision cut the haze like a knife through silk. The surface resolved. Curves braided into curves. Letters pretending not to be letters until you stared too long. Damn it. This feels like the Infernal Armis, I said. 6 heads turned. No one talked over the name. The Infernal Armis helped midwife the second calamity. You don't forget that kind of fire. But it's not a mythical artifact, I added. It's a film. Rachel caught up fast. Is it her? I nodded. Lysandra. Lust. Her power is coating the tower like a membrane. And since she's basically a goddess. Impenetrable, Serafina said quietly. Even my gray didn't like that word. Divine rank isn't a door I can open. Not yet. What is the tower supposed to be? Rose asked, steady. She was already mapping seams in her head. I don't know, I said. We're going to find out. Cecilia's slate buzzed. She glanced down, jaw tightening. Imperial Emergency Conference. Now. I looked to my mother. Alice watched the skyline like a sentence she was about to edit out of existence if someone would hand her a large enough pen. Mom, take care of Stella, I said. Daddy, are you going there? Stella asked from the couch, eyes still on the tower. Yes. I scooped her up. She locked her arms around my neck like she could keep parts of me from falling off. I'll be back from the palace. Listen to Grandma. Stay inside. Okay? Okay, Daddy. I set her down. Alice took her hand. Be careful, Arthur, she said. That was enough. We rode the penthouse lift to the garage. The hovercar doors lifted like sighs. Reka took the wheel in front she always drives when the road has teeth. Luna sat beside me, steady, warm. Rachel checked a compact purifier kit. Serafina took the window, sky and street both, like always. Rose skimmed feeds. Cecilia messaged district captains to keep the third ring boring. Master? Reka said over the hum of maglev fins. Do you think she came for you? Maybe, I said. It's insane to say out loud. Maybe. Luna's mouth set. From everything we knew, one of the demon lords killed Julius. Some truths don't soften with time. Still too weak. The gates of transcendence glimmered high above me. Divine rank lived past that. In weather I couldn't breathe yet. I folded the anger and put it away. The imperial palace sits on stone that remembers old law even in 2050. Guards in charcoal coats waved us through. Drones tracked, then slid back into patrol patterns. We skimmed under the portico into cool air that smelled like clean ink and sealed marble. 17 chairs ringed the oval table in the war room. Some were occupied in person. Most held full-height holos. Grain-true projections fed by palace beam. Adeline Slatemark, tailored black coat, hair pulled back. Stood at the head, Quinn a half-step behind her right shoulder, golden hair, red eyes, low radiant power tucked small like a blade in a sleeve. Charlotte Alaric, sleeves already rolled. Red hair pinned, green eyes bright, stood by the floor array. Duke Everett Springshaper, Rose's father, brought warmth with him like a good kitchen. Eva Lopez, red scarf, Mythos Academy crest pinned neat. Took a seat near Charlotte, teacher's eyes sharp and kind. The holos resolved. Alastair Creighton, old tree crest at his shoulder, calm and watchful. Arden Windward, precise, pilot's poise. Lucifer Windward, half a smile, full calculation. Marcus Vizirian, jaw like concrete, boots on something expensive even when seated. Valen Ashbluff, ink on his fingers, mind 3 lines ahead. Mo Zenith, quiet, every silence measured. Celine Kagu, laboratory cool, eyes that count pieces. The room stood and bowed its heads, in person and hollow together, a ripple of protocol that had weight. Second hero, Adeline said, and the title landed where it should. Around the ring, the holos echoed in their own tones. Second hero, from Alastair steady. Second hero, Arden clipped. Second hero, Lucifer amused but real. Second hero, Marcus grudging and solid. Second hero, Valen already reaching for a pen. Second hero, Mo measured. Second hero, Celine clinical and exact. Eva's smile reached her eyes. Second hero, she added warm. Everett gave me a small nod, pride tucked behind it. Quinn's red eyes held steady. Respect isn't for my ego. It's for the work. Adeline gestured to the table. Please begin. I sat opposite her, my fiancés and Luna around me, and let my voice carry. We're here to discuss the tower that rose outside Avalon, I said. Observed with gray. The surface isn't stone. The script. A film coats the structure that isn't ours, Lysantra's power. Lust. Divine rank. We do not cut it. We don't try. Charlotte stepped onto the array and pressed her palm to the rim. A low hum ran through floor and glass. Anchored base, she said. Keyed into something older. Hear the layering. We listened. Far past the hills. The tower sang a thin note that made my teeth itch. Luna's golden eyes narrowed by a millimeter. Quinn's attention leaned out like a hand into rain. Nested frequencies, Charlotte said, pen moving. The outer shell wants attention. The inner coil counts. Counts what? Rachel asked. Time, Charlotte said. Or answers. Or both. I wrote into the white space above the brass. A margin line, not a domain. All speech here is plain. The room eased a notch. People stopped reaching for rhetoric without knowing it. Containment ring? Serafina asked. Not yet, I said. If I write no harm passes this line, the tower will decide harm is a kindness it's doing you. Define harm first, Charlotte said, still writing. Then write the line. Redeemer comb at the base? Rachel asked, tapping her purifier kit. Lanterns closed until we're inside the shadow. Yes, I said. Clean early. Clean often. Don't let clever get a foothold. Everett set 2 leather-bound ledgers on the table and flipped one toward Adeline. Binding towers, he said. Springshaper records. 3 mentions in 200 years. Every story ended badly for someone. The pattern's the same. The tower listens, and the tower invites. Invites who? Mo Zenith asked, his first word sharp. Anyone tired enough to answer, Quinn said even. Luna folded her arms. If I bring pure light first, it will mock me. Law early, Cecilia said, writing fast. Pure light later. Words early, I said. Charlotte's eyes flicked up. A teacher catching a student doing it right. Verb first, she said. No poetry. Yes, ma'am. Cecilia and Reka bracketed the table, mirrors of order. Reka's column. Cordons, evac routes, med hubs, drone patterns, redeemer rotations. Cecilia's column. Court authority, district captains, budget lines, secure net channels, public notice language. Between them, the empire grew a spine. Closer, Adeline said. Charlotte touched two sigils. Distance folded politely. The tower's skin resolved. Not stone, script. Curves braided into curves. Letters pretending not to be letters until you stared long enough to feel them looking back. Not local, Charlotte said. Imported grammar. Wrong side of the sky. Translate, Quinn asked. Yes, she said and kept writing. Eva leaned in, finger on a tight loop. That curve inverts pronouns, she said. Any sentence starting, I comes back as we want you to. Don't start with I. Noted, I said. We were settling into lanes when the palace net chimed, sharp, old-fashioned. Not Empire. Not Ouroboros. It bounced off a mirrored relay and stopped in front of Rachel's slate. She frowned. That's not our channel. Source. Cecilia asked, eyes still moving. Rachel mirrored to the center. A crest resolved. Inkwork lines forming an old tree, no crown, no court stamps. One word under it in plain type. Creighton. Rose looked at Rachel. Reka's eyes slid to me. Seraphina's fingers went still. Quinn's brows rose. Adeline didn't move. Charlotte watched Rachel like a teacher taking attendance after the alarm. Rachel's mouth flattened. My family, she said. They didn't tell me. Open it here, Adeline said, calm. Not private. Rachel swallowed once and tapped. Clean border. Tight margins. Ink like a ruler. The first letters started to write themselves. No one breathed. And then the timer blinked into the bottom corner. Chapter 972. Binding Notice. This is a binding tower. It holds the demon lord of lust. If you do not conquer it within 6 months, the prison opens on earth. The countdown started at 182 days and ticked with a clock that wasn't ours. Rachel went pale, then angry, then professional. She kept her eyes on the text like it might behave better if she stared it down. Trace the route, Cecilia said, already pulling a packet map. Antique path, Rachel answered, fingers flying. 3 dead nodes only old houses keep alive. Signature gate. Then a slit in the palace net I did not know existed. Adeline's mouth tightened. We patched the slit after. Content first. Charlotte pressed her thumb to the brass. Resonance. The array hummed. The windows answered. Far away, the tower pulsed. 10 quick beats, a long breath, 10 again. My heart tried to match it. I told it no. Lust, Luna said, steady. The frequency matches old sights. 6 months is a leash, Quinn said. It wants us in its shadow long enough to make mistakes. Then we write laws that survive tired people, Cecilia said. Chairs. Tea. Clean air. Payrolls on time. We bore the city on purpose. Budget is live, Quinn said, sliding his token to her. Spend on boring. Always, Cecilia said. I wrote above the array. No command in this room is written to be admired. The room settled. The plan remembered itself. Everett tapped an old diagram. Binding towers listen and invite, he said. If you let them set the language, you lose. If you set the language early, you get odds. Plain before brave, I said, and the brass liked it. Celine Kagu's hollow tipped its head. Second hero, she said, cool. If the inner seam is language waiting for a signature, who signs for us? Me, I said. Simple. Within the scope this table defines. And only after we've stripped every trick out of the sentence. Alastair Creighton's hollow leaned forward, eyes on Rachel and then on me. Second hero, he said, and the title carried weight. You have our lines if you need them. Rachel's slate buzzed softly, a private ping. She glanced, blinked, exhaled. My mother, she said. 6 words. We will explain. Work first. She didn't look at me for approval. She didn't need to. She put the anger on a shelf and moved. Eva pointed to a fresh curl as Charlotte layered translations. That set reverses consent language, Eva said. Any I agree will be eaten and returned as command. Public education campaign without panic. We teach, say less. Poster copy, Cecilia said, writing. Say less, live more. Boring font. Friendly colors. Lucifer's hollow smirked. Marketable. Effective, Reka said, deadpan. Marcus Vizirian cracked his knuckles. We're really going to stare at a tower for half a year? We'll plan for 6 months and end it sooner, Adeline said, not raising her voice. We do not sprint a marathon and die at mile 2. Mo Zenith nodded once. Logistics will wear more people down than fear. We will not let that happen. Arden pointed at air corridors on the city feed. Sky lanes stay clean, he said. No sightseeing drones, no choppers. Ground media only. We don't make a spectacle. Valen flicked a pen cap. Working lexicon in 48 hours, he said. Charlotte will have one by dinner. Compete with your teachers, children. Lunch, Charlotte said. Eyes never leaving the script. Serafina laid 2 fingers on the glass. I'll drop temperature along approach lanes when we need movement, she said. 2 degrees. No frost. Feels like rain. People go home. Do it, Cecilia said. We make go home feel like common sense. Reka slid a grid. Cordons in 30. Med hub staffed. Transit nudged to light traffic without saying so. 2 exit routes per school flagged as practice drills. Rachel looked at the center display, jaw set. Redeemer teams. For ready, 2 more in 5. Sealed lanterns until we're under the tower's shadow. We clean ground while Arthur writes. Quinn met my eyes. I'm at your back until the ground stops being ground, he said. If you step onto glass, we change how we step. Fair, I said. Rose squeezed her father's sleeve. Everett winked at her. Then at me. Somehow both were the right temperature. The Creighton crest pulsed again. A second block of text appeared, neat and clinical. Entry must occur at the base. Outer shell is a distraction. Inner access is contractual. Do not sign. Do not state your full name. Do not agree to any sentence that begins with, I want. Rachel's eyes narrowed. That's my mother's hand, she said. Pride and steel in the same breath. Sharp. Useful. Rude. Send her fruit later, Cecilia said. I'll send her a bill, Rachel muttered, but the edge had eased. Scope of authority? I asked Adeline aloud. Because rooms like this move smoother when the stamp is spoken. You have it, she said. Within this plan. Second hero sets first sentences in the field. We keep the city steady. Understood. Luna leaned her shoulder into mine. Small pressure. Sun warm. First line when you see it, she said. Small. Not brave. True. Yes, I said. Adeline stood. Everyone else followed. Yes, even the holo straightened. Second hero, she said, eyes on me, voice steady. You have the respect of this table and the weight of the empire. We will build 6 months of calm if that is what it takes. We will end it sooner if we can. We will not let the world be written by lust. Around the ring. Second hero, Alastair said. Second hero, Arden echoed. Second hero, from Lucifer, amused but sincere. Second hero, Marcus solid. Second hero, Valen already annotating. Second hero, M.O. measured. Second hero, Celine exact. Second hero, Eva warm. Second hero, Everett proud. Second hero, Quinn, red eyes steady. We stand behind you. I nodded once. Respect in place. Work clear. Then we write, I said. Outside, the tower pulsed its thin, patient note. The countdown rolled over to 181 days, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and kept going, polite as a knife. Chapter 973. One voice at the door. The timer in the palace war room kept falling. Steady and rude. 181 days, 23 hours, 58 minutes. The tower's thin hum came through the windows like a string pulled too tight. We go in teams, Rachel said first. Standard stack. Lanterns sealed. We clean the base and you write. No, Luna said, quiet but firm. If I cross first, the tower will mock pure light. If we cross together, it will mirror our we back at us. Then I go, Serafina said. Scout, mark lanes, call you in. Or I do, Reka said. I handle the rope. I am faster to pull you out. I let them speak. I needed to hear the fear under their plans. Around the oval table, the holos watched without blinking. Alastair Creighton stood calm in blue light. Arden Windward already traced no-fly corridors in the air with 2 fingers. Lucifer Windward's half-smile hid full focus. Marcus Vizirian leaned forward like he could punch a problem through a wall. Valen Ashbluff flipped a pen cap and thought in margins. M.O. Zenith's silence weighed the cost. Celine Kagu counted risk like numbers on glass. In the room with us, Adeline Slatemark stood very straight. Quinn stood half a step behind her right shoulder, red eyes steady. Charlotte stood at the array with her sleeves rolled. Everett Springshaper rested both hands on old ledgers. Eva Lopez's red scarf warmed the edge of the table. It is not a nest, I said. It is a lock. Locks like single keys. Cecilia did not look up from her slate. Translate from hero to policy. Language trap, I said. The inner seam is a contract. If I bring 6 voices, the tower will braid our wants and hand me a sentence that starts with we. If I walk alone, it must deal with 1 grammar at a time. Alone raises single-point failure, Celine said. Group raises surface area, Charlotte answered. 1 line is easier to defend than 7 lines to chase. Rachel shook her head. You don't decide this without us. I don't, I said. But I will argue for it. I put both hands on the brass rim and kept the pitch plain. Outer shell is theater. Inner access is contract. Pure light goes second. Law goes first. The first law must be a sentence lust cannot twist or echo. Mythweaver writes sentences that stick. That is my work. If lust wants a chorus, we give her a solo and make her sing in my key. Romantic, Lucifer said. Also reckless. Accurate, Eva said. Support, Arden asked. We are not dropping you in a hole. Rope, Reka said with me. We both almost smiled. Literal tether on the threshold, Reka continued. Pulse monitor. Anchor line to the array and to me. If his rate spikes past safe, or if the line carries a wrong tone, I pull. If the line goes slack, we do not rush in. We change the field. Cold ring on the approach, Serafina said. 2 degrees. No frost. Feels like rain. People go home. Redeemer comb around the base, Rachel said. Closed lanterns. We keep the ground honest. No speeches. City stays boring, Cecilia said. Tea carts. Chairs. Payroll on time. Say less. Live more posters at every third corner. Air lanes clear, Arden added. No drones, no choppers, no spectacle. Lexicon by lunch, Charlotte said. Arthur, do not speak any verb I flag. Budget is live, Quinn said. Spend money on boring. Everett tapped a diagram. 3 records of binding towers. In the 2 that did not end in ruin, the key was the first sentence at the seam. Not a shout. A line. Who said it? Mo asked. A fool who learned, Everett said. Or a hero who listened. I looked at the 6 women who share my life. I am not safer than you, I said. I am the right shape for the first step. If I go in with any of you, the tower will use that we against us. If I go alone, it must get past me. You hold the world steady while I set the first line. Rose's jaw tightened. I can redraw seams from here. If I see echo or delay, I write no echo across it and pass it to Charlotte. Reka's eyes held mine. You come back when I tug. Yes. Serafina set 2 fingers on the brass. If your temperature spikes, I cool the air and slow the scene. Breathe and buy time. Yes. Cecilia slid an envelope across. Authority signed. Even God's red paper. Thank you. Rachel's hands were fists. You send me your first line before you speak. If I raise my hand, you wait for Charlotte's blink. You do not perform because you want to be brave. Agreed. Luna did not move. Anchor to me, she said. Not with light. With breath. 4 in, 6 out, 1 time at the threshold. Yes, I said. Adeline looked around the ring. Objections. All of us, Rose said, and the other 5 said it with her. The Empress let the silence cool. Second hero? I go alone, I said. Valeria and Erebus are with me, inside my frame and in my head. Not as signatures the tower can grab. No one else crosses the seam until I call it clean. Quinn leaned in slightly. You carry our respect and our restraint. We stand behind you. We do not push you. So ordered, Adeline said. The second hero enters alone. The Empire keeps the ground steady. 6 months if we must. Sooner if we can. Around the ring, Holo straightened. Second hero, Alastair said. Second hero, Arden said. Second hero. From Lucifer, amused but sincere. Second hero, Marcus said. Second hero, Valen said. Second hero, Emo said. Second hero, Celine said. Second hero, Eva said, warm. Everett squeezed Rose's shoulder and met my eyes. Quinn's red gaze stayed steady. Charlotte's pen did not stop. I exhaled. No one argued again. That is what real respect sounds like. We filed out past the glass. The tower cut the sky in a straight, impolite line. The countdown kept going, polite as a knife. The city below started to act like itself on purpose. T-carts rolled. Inspectors actually inspected. Drones drifted back from the skyline and chose quieter routes. Guards posted chairs instead of barricades. It looked boring. It was the best kind of work. We rode the lift down to the motor court. Reka drove. Luna sat beside me and said nothing. Rachel watched the tether coil on her lap like she could will it to be kinder than rope. Serafina tracked wind. Cecilia wrote until her slate stopped, pretending it needed sleep. Rose watched the tower and then watched me and then the tower again. I did not pretend my hands were not shaking. I put them flat on my knees and felt the shake leave a little at a time. I would go alone. They would hold the world. At the curb I looked back once. 6 faces, 1 promise. We would win quietly or not at all this time. Chapter 974. Threshold. Back at the penthouse the world did its best to be ordinary. The tower still split the horizon like a stake through cloud, but the street below chose calm. Tea carts at corners. Quiet inspectors with actual clipboards. Valeria stirred as soon as I stepped into my room. Cool and steady. A presence under my skin. Frame check, she murmured in my head. Plates firm. Flex points live. Edge copy is clean. Good, I answered. Stay light unless I call. Erebus uncoiled from the shadow by the dresser like ink, remembering it used to be a man. Ledger open. He clicked along our line. Null can't tuned low. No singing unless you are already bleeding. Prefer not to bleed, I thought back. I packed like I was going to a meeting, not to a myth. Plain clothes that moved, no plates. A clean sheath at my hip, the real edge sleeping in bone. A steel ring for a stylus because the first tool is a sentence. No charms the tower could call a promise. On the wall, I wrote 2 lines with a stub of wax. My mother's habit, my teacher's rule. Tonight, this is a home scene. Words are heavy only when carried kindly. If I listened too long, I would not leave. Douglas knocked and came in without waiting. My father's hands are thick with the kind of work that keeps food on tables. He took one look and did not pretend anything was fine. He pulled me in and cracked my back. You are still my boy, he said. Be smart. Be boring. I will, I said into his shoulder. Arya rushed in next, hair half tamed, eyes too bright. She is only a year younger. I am not saying don't go, she said. You'd go anyway. Just, please don't let it be smarter than you. I'll insult its grammar, I said. Good, she said, and punched my arm too hard. I let her win that one. Alice stood at the door for a count of 3, as if measuring the air. Then she crossed the room and took my face in both hands the way she did when nights were bad and money worse. Verbs, she said. Verb first, I said. She kissed my forehead. If it offers beauty, it lies. If it offers reason, it lies bigger. If it offers mercy, it steals. Don't bargain. I won't, I said. She nodded once and let me go. The air thinned. Stella had been building courage in the hallway. She came in like a small storm and tried to break the plan by hugging it. I caught her and held on. I know you have to, she said into my neck. I hate it. I still know. I'll be careful, I said. I'll be boring. She sniffed, pulled back, and dug in her pocket. I made a thing, she said in a rush. She held up a bracelet of elastic cord and matte beads. Tiny lines were carved into some of them. It does nothing, she said. Like actually nothing. But when you look at it, your brain pauses to check the pattern and that buys a half second. For not saying a dumb sentence. It's perfect, I said, and put it on. It felt like armor that did not look like armor. Ice cream when you come back, she said, trying for a grin. You promise not to make bad deals, I said. I promise, she said, fierce. She hugged me again and then went to stand with Alice, small hand finding big hand like it had a map. The 6 women waited by the door. The fight had been at the palace. This was not that. Reka came first. She fixed my collar and did not pretend she wasn't memorizing my face. You feel the tug. You come home. Yes. Rose pressed a small strip of blue paper in my palm, inked with one curve. Seam breaker, she said. One time. Only if you must. Understood. Rachel met my eyes. First line to me before you say it. If I raise my hand, you wait. No hero speeches. Agreed. Cecilia held out an envelope. Authority signed, she said. Even God's red paper. Thank you, I said. Serafina set 2 fingers over my pulse. Breathe. 4 in, 6 out. Count out loud if you must. 4 in, 6 out. I echoed. Luna said nothing. She pressed her forehead to mine for one slow breath, then stepped to the window and kept watch. She was staying back by choice. Pure light second, not first. We rode the lift to the garage. The hovercar doors side open. The motorcade slid into a city that had chosen quiet. At the 3rd ring, tea steam curled from carts. Weather advisory banners ran gentle text. Inspectors actually inspected. Transit slowed without alarms. People walked their dogs and went home because the air felt a bit like rain. Boredom was winning. Near the cordon the crowd wasn't a crowd. Rachel's teams moved like people you trusted to tell you where not to stand. Serafina's cold-made jackets zip. Reka checked the rope 3 times and then a 4th. Rose drew and erased and drew again on the op screen. Cecilia's messages popped on district slates in a friendly font. Quinn stood behind Adeline, who looked like a calm law. Everett walked the lane shaking hands and sending people home by first name. The base of the tower looked like nothing for 3 steps and like wrong for the 4th. Light thinned. Sound lost edges. The skin of the structure wasn't stone. It was letters hiding in curves, oil pretending to be water. I stood at the seam and lifted my hand to the empty air above it. One last margin line where only I would see it. We go to keep the city boring. Valeria rested in my bones. Erebus thinned to a whisper. Reka tied the rope to my belt and to the anchor ring. Rachel clipped the pulse lead to my wrist. Serafina checked temperature. Rose showed me the little blue curve again and then put it back in my palm. Cecilia slipped the envelope into my inner pocket and tapped it once. Adeline stepped up beside Quinn. "Second hero," she said. "We hold." "Thank you," I said. I turned to my family. Douglas folded his arms and made a face that meant pride and also that he still wanted to ground me. Arya lifted both fists like an idiot and then laughed at herself. Alice did not speak. She mouthed one word. "Verbs." Stella pressed both hands over her mouth like that could keep her from crying. Then pulled them down and gave me the fiercest glare a 12-year-old has ever made. I breathed with Luna. 4 in, 6 out. Quiet moved through my chest and stayed. I looked at Reka. Her jaw was stone. "Lines," she said. "Lines?" I said back. I stepped forward. Light bent. The rope pulled once as if the world wanted one more vote. Then it eased. One more breath. 4 in, 6 out. I crossed the seam and went into the tower. Chapter 975. Baseline. The tower doesn't smell like stone. It smells like paper that learned how to breathe. Light thins as soon as I cross the seam. Sound loses its edges. My first step inside lands and the floor decides to be floor. The second step waits to make up its mind. I hold still and count a breath. 4 in, 6 out. Valeria settles in my bones, calm and cool. The way a blade feels when it stops pretending it's separate from the hand that holds it. Inventory, I tell myself. No bravado, just truth. I lift my right hand and reach for gray. It answers like a faraway radio through rain. 2 pages try to lie flat in the air between my fingers, and then wrinkle. The left one warps at the corner, the right one tears where a thumbprint ought to be. I push a little more and both pages break apart into silver dust that doesn't fall. Cost wrong. Response worse. Result? Failure. Noted. I say to no one in particular. I try Mythweaver the way I was taught to when the room is listening. Small and plain. I write a 3-word margin on the air above my head. All speech plain. The sentence appears in faint, careful strokes, holds for 1 heartbeat, and sputters. Letters stutter, invert, and fade. The tower doesn't reject the line. It taxes it until the ink has to choose between staying and being honest. Plain still works, I think, just not as a blanket. Loosened harmony next. I keep it tight and close, the way Luna taught me when she wanted me to feel safety without confusing it for invulnerability. I let harmony lay a cool cloth over my skin and set my stance inside that circle. It holds. Barely. The room doesn't soothe with me like it does in the field it watches. Harmony shrinks to the size of a ribcage and becomes a personal habit, not an aura. Fine. I whisper. Me first. 9 circle circuits? I place a toe against the floor line and hum the first knot of the Bahamut method. The response comes in shards. Power tries to gather and finds the floor refusing to be a partner. The knot completes with sand in it. Not here, I say. Not like that. Soul resonance is not for empty rooms. I let it rest. Erebus clicks a dry greeting along the packed line, small and polite in my ear bone. Ledger is open. No singing unless you are already bleeding. Prefer not to bleed, I answer. Stinginess looks good on you. I test gray one more time, this time with no theater. Thumb-sized page. 2-touch fold. I press it to the floor like a stamp and pull back fast. The little page sticks half a second and flips to ash. Ash hangs where gravity should be. Okay, I say. Baseline. Almost no gray. Mythweaver on a diet. Harmony is me-sized. 9 circle powers fight the room. Resonance on standby. Soul and sword intact. I take 1 step farther into the entry hall. The walls aren't walls. They are letters pretending to be plaster. Each curve looks honest until you stare long enough to feel it staring back. I don't try to read them. Not yet. The floor is level in the way a polite lie is level. I glance up. The ceiling is higher than it ought to be without quite being tall. Distance doesn't want to commit. The whole place feels like the answer to a question that hasn't been asked. I drop my hand to Valeria's hilt. She warms once, acknowledgement, not invitation. No words. No theatrics. Just the weight of old metal that remembers what cutting is for. I move to the side where the light flattens least and set my feet the way Tiamat made me do it until my ankles burned. Forward stance. Back stance. Switch. Small. I run the first kata. The blade clears the sheath without sound. The cut is the cut, a straight line that does not argue with itself. No edge tricks. No verb carried on the swing. First bite, then exit, then breath. The tower does nothing. That tells me everything. I run the second kata. The turning cut, the hand change that should feel like water, feels like a hinge with grit. My right hip complains. My left shoulder has too much habit and not enough honesty. I know what perfect looks like. I can't land it without thinking too hard. Rust, I admit. 1 year back on Earth and too much of it was meetings, wars, and miracles. Not enough floors and sweat. I picture Tiamat's face when I got lazy on the recovery. She always knew when my edge wanted to skip steps and just be pretty. You broke through to mid-radiant because she didn't let you lie to your stance. You stayed there because you started fixing problems with power instead of angles. I run the third kata. Footwork only. Blade low, close to the guard. Tip quiet. Steps that keep deciding until they are already done. The tower tries to make the end of a step arrive early. I refuse to have an end. I keep the step open until it finishes on its own. Harmony hums around my ribs. It's enough to keep me from catching my own feet. I slow down. Tiamat's drill. 9 slow cuts, each faster than the last only because the line gets cleaner, not because the arm gets greedy. 1. I cut a line of air that doesn't push my wrist. 2. I cut a line of air that doesn't lean on my elbow. 3. I cut a line of air that doesn't require my shoulder to apologize. 4. I cut a line of air whose exit is as honest as its entrance. 5. I cut a line of air that does not promise a second cut before it finishes the first. 6. I cut a line of air that knows how to stop without looking like regret. 7. I cut a line of air that could live in a hallway with a low ceiling. 8. I cut a line of air that keeps the tip a rumor. 9. I cut a line of air that does not need a witness. By the 9th, my breathing has decided to be helpful. 4 in, 6 out. I test a small law on the cut itself. Not a sentence in the air. A verb in the muscle. Stop. The blade stops exactly where I told it to stop. The tower tries to make the stop become a hesitation. Harmony keeps it from looking like fear. Valeria settles and approves. I run stance work. Triangles. Lines. Circles. The floor tries to charge attacks on any pattern that looks like it means to repeat. I keep the patterns ugly on purpose. The tower is set to punish clean poetry it doesn't know what to do with bad handwriting. My footfalls find truth in the untidy. After 40 minutes, sweat runs down my back under the shirt and not a single part of me feels like it wasted the water. I try 9 circle again, this time the smallest version of an anchor from the Bahamut method. Barely a thought, barely a mark. Instead of a knot, I leave a dot. The dot agrees to keep being a dot. When I step past it, the dot says, "You were here, not you must come back." That's all I want. I try a Mythweaver line on the floor just to see what punishment feels like. Nothing here is urgent. The sentence ghosts in, then phrase. The tower taxes it and leaves a shadow feeling of delay. Not good enough to rely on. Good enough to remember as a last resort. Sword first, I think. Verb later. I set Valeria against my forearm and run Tiamat's favorite cruelty. Kata with pauses that arrive at random counts. 3, 5, 2, 7, 1. The pause is the cut. The cut is the pause. Any drift becomes a tell. The room tries to fill the pause with a meaning. I don't let it. I leave the silence honest. Erebus hums along the line. A tiny winter voice. If boredom were a saint, you'd have a shrine. Boredom wins, I answer. Write it down. Already engraving. My thighs start to ache. Good. The ache means I'm honest. I try gray one more time, spite more than hope. Thumb page. 2-touch fold. I don't push it all, I lay it down like I'm setting a playing card on a bar. The tiny page sits for a full second this time before the tower taxes it into ash that doesn't fall. It's not a total refusal. It's a long bill. Fine, I tell the room. We'll pay with steps instead of coins. I close my eyes and name what I have without making it sound braver than it is. Sword. Intact. Breath. Intact. Balance. Rusty. Fixable. 9 circle. Reduced. Usable in dots. Mythweaver. Flickers, no blankets. Gray. Thumbprints at high cost. Resonance. Save for when a rhythm shows. Harmony. Me-sized. Keep it that way. I open my eyes. Nothing in the hall has changed. That's the point. I take the sheath in my left hand and the hilt in my right and run 100 draws without a cut. Then I run 100 cuts without a draw. Then I do both with my eyes on the floor seam that refuses to be straight. I do not count them out loud. I let the body do the math. When the ache moves from legs to the space under my shoulder blades, I stop. I roll my neck. I take one more breath and decide to take the door only when my hands agree. They do. 1 floor at a time, I say. 1 verb at a time. I look at the letters pretending to be plaster and pick a spot that feels least interested in me. I keep my voice small. Enter. The wall doesn't open. The floor does half a step in front of my foot, as if the tower wants me to remember where I carry authority and where I don't. I don't move forward yet. I run the first kata again, slower than the first time, and land a cleaner ninth cut than I've thrown in months. Then I step through. Chapter 976. Next floor. The tower smells like paper that forgot it used to be trees. It's a hopeful smell if you like libraries, and a worrying one if you've ever been hit with a book. I take one step past the seam and the floor decides to exist under my boot. Generous of it. Inventory, I say, keeping my voice small. Small is cheap here. Valeria warms along my forearm, all bright and pleased to be involved. You have 2 feet, 1 excellent sword, and a personality that thinks jokes are a defense. Use all 3. Not in that order. Erebus brushes the packed line in my ear like a finger flick on a glass. Proceed. I reach for gray the way you reach for a light switch in the dark, expecting it, not needing it to be dramatic. 2 pages try to meet between my fingers. One cramps, the other tears at the corner like a timid napkin. The attempt collapses into silver dust that forgets how to fall. Gray is on strike. I note. Offer better conditions, Valeria says. Shorter hours, more respect, fewer metaphors. I'll send a fruit basket, I say, and put Gray away. Lucent harmony? That at least answers like an old friend after a long shift. Tired but present. I keep it ribcage sized. The room doesn't like big auras. The room taxes big. 9 circle circuits? I try the first Bahamut knot and get grit in the gears. Turns, technically. It also sulks. Myth Weaver? I write a tiny margin in the air. All speech plain. The letters stutter, pay a tax I can't afford, and fade like a shy confession. Right? I tell myself. Sword first. Verb later. The hall is long. The walls are letters pretending to be plaster. The ceiling is a number pretending to be height. The floor is a rumor with potential. I run stance work because stance work doesn't care about rumors. Triangles. Lines. Circles so ugly no architect will take credit. The tower taxes repetition, so I don't repeat. Every step finishes a bit different, like bad handwriting only a teacher could love. It's very confusing to traps and very good for ankles. Draw and sheathe until my shoulders stop treating the draw like a parade. 9th draw, the blade kisses air. A small cut that could live in a broom closet and not scare the mop. The room does nothing visible. That's the room telling me to continue. Again, Valeria says, a smile in steel. Again, I echo and do. On the 12th cut, letters gather and write a note on the floor in polite black. Please proceed with purpose. Valeria makes a delighted noise. The tower put up a motivational poster. You should get a raise. I touch the line with the toe of my boot. It tries to convert my step into a stride. I put my foot down like I'm placing a cup on a shelf. No drama. The ink goes dull and sulky. Purpose later, I say. Today we're doing posture. Tiamat taught me posture with a stick and a look. I can still feel both. I run her slow 9 cuts that only get faster because they get cleaner. 1. No shoulder apology. 2. No elbow brag. 3. Wrist tells the truth. 4. Exit is as honest as entrance. 5. Stop without looking like regret. By 9, my breath has decided to help instead of filing complaints. 4 in. 6 out. 7 tiles ahead. The floor dips a finger's width, then rises like a knee check disguised as architecture. I go over with my knee doing its job and nothing else. The tile gives up being interesting. We all have to grow sometime. A door grows out of text on the right wall. The handle is a question mark made of ambition. Above it, essay, and then the rest hides, coy. The frame meets the floor with the kind of neatness that screams claws. Do not touch, Valeria sings. I was not going to touch it. I lie and don't. I set my feet 1 pace away and give a word to the habit in my legs that loves finishing things. Pause. The urge sits. The handle wilts awkwardly, like a joke that didn't land. We walk past. The ceiling lowers by exactly the height of my patience, then changes its mind. Good. It should. The hall steps aside for a square room. For pillars, 1 lamp without a source, scuffs on the ground where someone did work or the tower wants me to think someone did. Either way, it's a floor. Floors and I are doing a thing. Catalog. Valeria says, eager. Pillars make corners. Lamp is a liar with good manners. Floor is the only honest adult. Erebus taps once. Proceed. 2 cuts, 1 step. 3 cuts, 1 breath. For cuts, no step. Add the ugly pause count 3, 5, 2, 7, 1, because pausing where you don't want to is half of swordsmanship and most of adulthood. The lamp tries to brighten. The floor tilts toward a corner. I accept both and train on the slope. If the room insists on helping me get strong ankles, refusing would be rude. Left elbow thinks it's the protagonist, Valeria says. The blade exits without wagging. The shoulder stops holding additions for Swan Lake. Progress. Quiet, sensible, undramatic. My favorite kind even when I forget that. The pillars flash text. Why so small? Because large is taxable, Valeria answers, sweet as poison tea. And because broom closets are available everywhere fine towers are sold. I make everything smaller. Steps like hopscotch. Cuts that wouldn't wake a cat. Breath still hits 6 on the way out. The lamp dims. The pillars decide to be pillars again. The letters get bored. Bored is safe. Bored keeps cities running. Door behind, Valeria says softly. I finish the breath. I look. Not a door. An absence of wall that found purpose. It leads to a hall that looks exactly like the hall we already survived. Appropriate. Sword first. Verb later. Repeat until better. Report, Erebus says, voice like a stamped form. Footwork cleaner. Shoulder less dramatic. Cuts short and mean. Harmony me-sized, we are getting along. Mythweaver Pocket Edition. Gray a luxury item. 9 circle dots. Not nets. Mood. Oatmeal. Valeria gasps. With cinnamon. Plain. Monster. We move. A corner pretends to be a dead end. I walk into the shadow because shadows at least are honest. The wall sighs and becomes a passage. Offended that I didn't clap. I don't clap for doors. Doors should clap for me. We rest against a wall that has been a wall for 5 minutes straight. Personal best for everyone. Companions. I say. Yes. Valeria sings. Listening, Erebus says. Thanks for being here. I tell them both. It's quieter without the rope than I like to admit. Valeria rubs warmth across my wrist like a cat that pays rent in affection and commentary. We are extremely here. I'm at least 3 swords worth of company. For on weekends. Erebus. Proceed. I eat a ration bar that tastes like recycled ambition and wash it down with water that tastes like not dying. Then I stand and check my hands. No tremor. That's new. Or I'm too tired to shake. Also new. Ready? Valeria asks. No, I say. We go anyway. We go anyway. The next hall narrows to move me from opinion to discipline. Letters lean in, nosy. I don't give them gossip. I run Tiamat's cruelty. Random pauses until my body stops throwing tantrums and starts listening. 3, 5, 2, 7, 1. The numbers are a personal attack. The work is worth it. At the end, the wall pretends to end. I do the thing I have been doing all morning. I don't believe it. A shadow becomes a seam. The seam becomes a door that was always there. It hates that I refuse to give it a story. It'll live. We step through and the room on the other side tries to clap. I let it. Then I train in the corner where the applause dies quickest. Your cuts, Valeria says, satisfied, are starting to sound like answers instead of excuses. That's the nicest thing anyone has said to me in a cursed building. I tell her. Give it an hour, she says. I have a list. Erebus. Proceed. We proceed. We keep it small. We keep it honest. We keep going. By the time the tower offers me a handle made entirely of flattery, I have enough discipline not to grab it. We walk past. The room pouts. We work. Chapter 977. The rope that knew too much. This hall is not trapped. That is suspicious, which is a sentence I would like embroidered on a pillow if we live long enough for furniture. Don't jinx it. I tell myself. I will, Valeria says, bright. It's a trap wearing nice shoes. Erebus touches the packed line. Proceed. 20 paces of well-behaved ceiling. Letters that pretend to mind their own business. Air doing a convincing impression of air. I walk like a man who believes in floors and keeps receipts. A gentle tug at my hip. The tether. Reka's rope from the seam. Pulse lead warm on my wrist. I can't hear her, but the idea of her hand is there. Competent, steady, a little bossy, like home. 2 tugs. Our code for still with you. I squeeze the lead once. Still me. We turn a bend. The wall writes safety line at ankle height, which is like a salesman introducing himself as definitely not a scam. That's bait, Valeria sings. Please do not lick the bait. I wasn't going to. I lie. The corridor narrows to a sleeve. The floor is polished enough to reflect my poor life choices. A hair-thin thread of ink runs along the left like a fishing line for promises. Trip line, I say. Erebus. Claws. The rope tugs again. Not our code. A little greedy. The ink glints exactly the way regret glints in hindsight. I stop. The hall hums. Pleased that I noticed. Cut the reflex, not the string, Valeria says. The humor drops out of her voice like a coin into a well. I raise the blade and cut the itch under my ribs. The polite urge to answer a pull. The cut lives in muscle and habit, not in air. The greedy tug slides off and becomes an awkward wiggle. The haul makes the sound a clerk makes when you bring the correct form. Unamused respect. I step past the thread. The tether brushes it. The ink wriggles for the rope like a cat for a lap. Loosened Harmony wraps the tether, small and firm. Harmony is rude to parasites. The ink recoils like I swatted it with a rolled-up newspaper. Good rope, Valeria says. No snacks for hallway vermin. We move. A door blossoms on the right, too curvy by half. Above it, essay, and the rest refuses to be legible, coy as gossip. Don't, Valeria says. I am not, I say, gripping my own curiosity by the scruff. We go straight. The floor sighs like someone who wanted drama. Then the pull hits hard. Not polite. A yank. The rope bites into my waist. The lead on my wrist goes hot. I feel the seam anchor hum back at me across too much distance. Then I feel something else. The line losing weight. Ropes are heavier than ideas. This is becoming an idea. Reka, I ask the air. Erebus. Not Reka. Vote. The hall is asking me to agree to come back. The ink thread swells, reaching. There's a clever little clause under it, dressed like concern. I set my feet and do not agree. The yank turns into a snap. The tether goes taut, then thins. Weight drains out of it like sand from a broken glass. The line stops being rope and becomes the word rope, which is notoriously easy to edit. Now, Valeria says, I cut where there is nothing. The blade meets a shape that exists only because a sentence says it does. The cut lands because I told it what it was for before I moved. The rope parts clean. No whip, no drama, no loud goodbye. The coil at my hip slumps. The lead goes cool. Silence arrives. It brings luggage. Erebus. Acknowledged. Valeria tries levity on purpose. On the bright side, no more tug bruises. I liked the bruises, I say, and it's more honest than I intend. I know, she says, then recovers her grin. We can bruise you ourselves. Team building. I count a breath. 4 in, 6 out. Alone, I say. With us. Valeria corrects, cheerful and sharp. I am at least 3 swords of personality. For on holidays. Erebus is a very supportive filing system. Erebus. Proceed. We continue. Next chamber. A square with a ceiling that keeps reconsidering its contract. The floor is a grid of grays polite enough to pass for a government office. In the middle. Please center yourself. No, I tell the floor. Edges first. I walk the border. Every third square tries to feel important. I step on the humble ones. The humble ones hold. Floors and people have that in common more often than they admit. Drill. Valeria asks. Drill, I say. Broom closet cuts on the move. Steps in the boring squares. Pauses on ugly numbers. The blade stops where asked. The hip resigns from politics. The wrist stops campaigning for attention. Breath reaches 6 without sounding like it wants applause. The text updates. Choose a path. I choose not to choose, I say. Objection noted. Valeria. Sustained. I let breath pick direction. Feet follow breath. Feels like cheating because I wanted trumpets. It's not cheating. It's what competence feels like when you were promised fireworks. The far wall decides to be a door. It doesn't flounce. I appreciate that and do not reward it with gratitude. State of swordsman? Erebus asks. Ledger open. Better. Less silly. Stupid small cuts are doing heavy lifting. Harmony me-sized but loyal. Mythweaver petty cash only. Gray is a luxury brand I can't afford. 9 circle is dots. Tether gone. Morale? Cereal without sugar. Valeria gasps. Add raisins. Prison food, I say. Banished, she says, scandalized. We pass through. The next hall lowers its ceiling by the height of an unfunny joke. I duck early to be annoying. The ceiling considers its life choices and rises. The letters lean so close I could kiss them. I don't. Standards. Talk to me, Valeria says, chatty on purpose. Favorite soup? Least favorite demon? Thoughts on naps. Tomato, I say. Lust. And I will write a law that guarantees naps when this is over. Dream big, she says. But not now because the wall is lying again. She's right. The corner is pretending to be a dead end. I walk into the shadow. The wall sighs and becomes a seam. The seam acts like it was always here. It wasn't. We all lie sometimes. On the other side, a training square with 4 pillars and 1 lamp that isn't. The pillar text says, ACT big. I act small. The room tries to make small feel like cowardice. I make small feel like craft. The difference is cost. Cowardice runs a tab. Craft pays cash. Your cuts? Valeria says, pleased. Are getting rude. That's the point. I say, and run Tiamat's cruelty again. 3, 5, 2, 7, 1. My body hisses and then learns. Tiamat would approve, then hit me with a stick anyway, on principle. We rest one breath against a wall that has decided to be wall for the full count. It is trying its best. Ledger, Erebus prompts. Hands steady. Breath honest. Pride complaining. Discipline louder. Rope gone. Still here. Proceed, he says, which is his way of saying well done. We walk. The hall tries a new trick. A line of neat text writing itself under my feet to suggest a better route. I step off it. The line slows down to match me, then gives up and retreats to whatever break room trap text goes to when it clocks out. New theory, Valeria says. The tower is a group project. The letters are the one student who wants to present. Everyone else is sick that day, I say. Everyone else is smart, she says. We turn a corner. There's a door made entirely of compliments. It says kind things about my posture, my potential, and my charitable nature. It also has very sharp hinges. We don't touch it. We take the plain passage with scuffed edges and no posters. My shoulders relax a fraction. I didn't realize they'd been tense. I am, in fact, a human being. How lonely are you? Valeria asks, gentle under the grin. I have you, I say. You have us both, Erebus says, which from him is practically poetry. Then I'm lonely in a manageable way, I say. The honesty surprises me and nobody else. A long hall opens ahead, quiet as a library, judgmental as a cat. At the far end, a thin slit like a mouth that didn't commit to an opinion. New problem, Valeria sings. We love problems. They're just solutions wearing sunglasses. Erebus. Proceed. I check my grip. I check my knees. I check the 4 in, 6 out. I take a step and the floor agrees. We move forward, slowly, small, honest, and very annoying to any curses that prefer grand entrances. Somewhere far behind, at a seam that is no longer mine, a rope lies on the ground. I will miss the tug. I will also survive without it. Both can be true. Onward, Valeria asks. Onward, I say. Proceed, Erebus says. Chapter 978. Unity, then less, 1. The tower tries a new joke on me. A mirror that isn't a mirror. It looks like a foggy sheet of glass stretched across the far wall. When I raise Valeria and breathe in, a pale outline of me appears in that fog. Just bones and joints, like a chalk drawing that knows my bad habits. When I breathe out, little red dots blink on wherever my body leaks the secret that I'm about to move. That's rude, I tell the wall. Valeria hums bright along my forearm. It's honest. Honesty is the knife you carry inside your pride. Erebus taps once on the packed line. Proceed. Sword unity means blade, body, intent are one thing. It also means every part of the one thing can betray the other two if I get lazy. Posture tells. Ice tell. Ankles write love letters to the floor a half beat early. The tower is here to make sure I don't keep any of that. I settle my stance, soft knees, hips stacked over ankles, spine not trying to be a flagpole. My right hand finds the hilt like it was born there. My left hand rests on the scabbard mouth. Nothing dramatic. If this gets more boring, the room might fail me out of politeness. Baseline, I say. I look at the fog. The outline looks back. Red dots pulse over my right shoulder, left eyebrow, the ball of my front foot. My own face has called the police on me. Valeria is very helpful. Your eyebrow just confessed to the crime in 3 languages. Thank you, I tell my eyebrow. It twitches and adds another red dot for spite. I draw and cut. The cut is small, clean, short enough to fit in a broom closet. The mirror keeps its notes. Red dots flared a breath before the blade moved. Shoulder hitch, thigh load, heel whisper. I could get away with that outside. Not here. The tower taxes tells. Unity is good, I tell the room. Now we make it quiet. This isn't about speed. It's about premotor silence, the bit before the move starts where your body gives a little speech about what it plans to do. No speeches. Just the thing. I reset. 4 in, 6 out. On the next draw, I try to start with relaxation, not contraction. No shoulder prep. No heel stamp. The blade wants to move, the body lets it move. The red dots still blink, but fewer. The eyebrow is trying to behave. The heel is a menace. Valeria purrs. Better. Your elbow didn't try to found a small nation. Noted, I say. A line of fresh text writes itself on the wall to my left. Please commit. That's what the last door said when it tried to sell me a handle. I answer. The floor clicks. A thin frame rises around me like a birdcage made of fishing line. Strands cross and intersect at nose, shoulder, hip, knee, ankle. There's a little chime bell at each crossing. They ring when I twitch. Excellent, Valeria says. An instrument. You are the bad music. Erebus. Time. Cut again. A gentle, mean little cut, all bite, no tail. 3 bells ring. Not many. Too many. I slow down. Tiamat taught me this by prodding a line down my back and telling me to stop trying to impress air. No preload. No ready. The ready is the cut. I plant the big toe of my front foot like a thumbtack. I let the heel imagine a floor that is very far away. I let the neck be boring. I tell my eyes not to pick a spot like a hungry cat they understand and go soft. Draw. Valeria whispers. I draw. The blade moves. I do not. No bells. In the fog, the chalk skeleton does exactly the thing without hosting a press conference first. 2 red dots blink late, after the cut is already over. That's the shape I want. The tell arrives and finds the action has gone home. Again. I say because victory is a trap. Again. Valeria sings, because repetition is how knives learn. The tower changes the rules as soon as it thinks I'm comfortable. The mirror shifts from Chalkman to a faint ghost of me at half opacity. Copies my timing, but it cheats. It starts its move on the twitch I haven't twitched yet. A predictive algorithm in fog. If I get lazy, it will beat my blade to the line every time. That's just showing off. I tell it. Beat the ghost, Valeria says. Haunt back. I exhale to the 6 and let the last air be quiet. In that nothing, something starts, not in muscle, not in the shoulder, not in the foot, the start is in the cut. The blade is moving, and only then do I find myself attached to it. The ghost arrives late. 1 bell rings, 2 stay bored. Red dots blink after. I don't grin. Grinning is a tell, and the mirror would enjoy that too much. Erebus. Again. We do this until the bells are mostly bored and the red dots brighten more out of habit than conviction. The eyebrow still wants attention. It's an ambitious eyebrow. I forgive it and keep working until even it loses interest. Next, I say because comfort is for beds. The hall answers by tilting the floor 3 degrees to the right. It's enough to make every ankle on earth confess its sins. I accept the tilt and cut on the slope. If the room wants to help me understand where I leak weight, I will graciously accept the tutoring I didn't ask for. 0 tell step on a slope is harder. The body loves to load the downhill foot a blink early. The bells are eager to tell on me. I cheat by being honest. I put the intent in the cut, then move the part of me that can't help but follow. It looks like magic. It's just physics that isn't opinionated. Grip, Arthur. Valeria reminds me. Neutral. Let the forearm talk. The shoulder does not get a microphone. I listen. The handle sits where it always sits. The thumb isn't a hero. The index finger isn't in charge. The blade tracks true because nothing else needs to. The bells stay quiet unless I do something foolish. Breath, Erebus says. For in. 6 out. I use the bottom of the out-breath as a small door that doesn't squeak. The start step slips through that door. No one sees it go. The tower watches. It doesn't clap. That's fine. I didn't clap for it earlier, we're even. Chapter 979. Unity. Then less. 2. The wall adds a new toy. A string of faint lights that hang at mid-chest height and drift from left to right across the room at random speeds. If my head tracks them, the bells tattle. If my eyes lock, the floor humps itself into a ridge where I don't want it. Look soft, Valeria says. See everything, pick nothing. I let the lights be lights and blanket the whole room with attention that doesn't have a favorite. Peripheral vision is where sharp things live. The next set of cuts land inside that blanket. The bells act bored. The lights drift, discover I'm not fun, and go elsewhere to annoy someone deserving. Enough, I say, when my forearms start to whisper about being made of meat. The mirror fades. The birdcage melts into the floor. In their place, the tower offers me a little line of text at knee height. Now without the mirror. Ah, Valeria says. The trust fall. Erebus. Proceed. I do the same work without help. Soft eyes, neutral grip, forearm chain, no heel stamp, premotor silence. Cut on the bottom of the breath. The floor doesn't roll me. The walls don't recoil. The ceiling has stopped trying to be a number and has settled for being above me. We rotate through stances. Forward, back, switch, short guard walk, tip quiet, shoulders politely boring. I don't let the left shoulder start a conversation just because the right one had to sit down. Both are equal under the law of no speeches. The tower, annoyed that I'm not being led by the nose, turns the hallway into a thin bridge across a shallow pit of paper. The paper smells like old contracts and small defeats. Every time my foot drives too obviously into the bridge, a sheet lifts and snaps like a disapproving ant. I have many ants, Valeria says when the first sheet scolds me. All of them in my grip. Thank you for the family, I tell her, and make my step less interesting. Zero-tell entries mean my presence fills the next second without announcing which part of me will be there. When I get it wrong, the bridge hums disapproval and the pit flutters like a filing cabinet being opened in a hurry. When I get it right, the bridge feels like a continuation of my shin bone. We take that skill and go smaller. The shortest cut that still matters. Wrist forearm, not shoulder. The blade is the movement. I am allowed to come along. An hour or 10 minutes time here is opinionated later. The bridge has accepted that I'm boring. The pit of paper gives up its snapping hobby and lays flat, like a library after closing. I step onto the far lip and the tower gives me a door. The door is not made of praise this time. It's a rectangle of plain wall that decides to stop existing. I look at it, wait, and when it stays boring for 10 consecutive seconds, I allow myself to go through it. Before I do, I take stock. State. Erebus. Recording. Draws and cuts are zero-tell most of the time. Heel no longer writes a letter first. Shoulder has agreed to a lifetime of silence. Eyes can be soft even when the room is annoying. Unity is intact. The new trick is less, not more. Valeria warms. You are beautifully uninteresting. I'm proud. That sounds like an insult. I say pleased. It's the best kind, she says. The kind that saves your life. I take one more cut, because I don't trust doors that don't have to wait their turn. The blade moves like the thought of a blade. The body is a rumor that turned out to be true. Nothing in me leaves a note. The room does not react, which is the same as approval here. Proceed, Erebus says. We step into the next hall. It's wider, which is polite, and lined on one side with what might be windows if windows were made of old paper pressed under glass. The paper is full of handwriting I can't quite read. The smell is libraries and rain and hope that thinks it's practical. I give the windows my soft eyes. They behave like scenery. Good. I don't have time for their autobiography. We walk in short guard, tip quiet, feet not making promises. The floor tries to steal one promise anyway by sinking where my weight is supposed to be a heartbeat from now. It doesn't get anything to eat. I'm already gone when the idea of me arrives. I liked that, Valeria says. Do it again. Do it 1,000 times. I will, I say and mean it. The hallway ends in a panel of a different gray. It's the kind of gray that thinks very highly of itself. The panel writes in tidy print, prove it. I do not give a speech. I don't scowl. I don't summon gray, because gray isn't here for me in the ways that count. I simply draw and cut. It's the same cut I've been practicing for an hour that might be 10 minutes. It's the same breath. It's the same bored shoulder. It's the same quiet step. The blade arrives and the world admits it has been cut without any of the usual theater. The panel is already open by the time the red dots in my head remember they exist. Valeria laughs, bright as new steel. See? Nothing is the sharpest thing. Erebus. Proceed. I do. As I pass the threshold, the old tether aches in memory. I let the ache exist and don't let it write my next step. Alone is a big word. I fill it with small work and a sword that refuses to lie about what it's for. Ahead, the tower gets taller or I get smaller, which is the right direction either way. We keep moving. Again. Valeria asks, hungry for the next boring miracle. Again. I say, and the bells stay quiet even though there aren't any. Chapter 980. The room that wanted to drive one. The next hall pretends to be neutral. It has that bland architectural confidence you only get from rectangles that pass their safety inspections. The air is cool. The light is steady. The floor does not sigh, which is why I don't trust a single square inch of it. Place your bets. Valeria says, bright in my forearm. Invisible marbles, judgmental tiles, or the classic, falling ceiling that just wants attention. Erebus brushes the packed line once. Proceed. I take 3 short guard steps. Tip quiet, hip stacked, no premotor fidget. The first 2 land like I paid my taxes. The third step, the floor finishes for me. It's a tiny thing. My boot is still an inch above stone when the ground decides where it will be. The rest of me follows because that's what bodies do with gravity and consensus. Ha! Valeria crows. Floor said, allow me. I decline. I tell the floor, and make the next step boring enough that even a control freak gets sleepy. The hall does not appreciate my tone. Pale threads slide out of the wall at elbow height, thin as hair, clear as conscience, and hang there like violin strings stretched across a room. They don't touch me. They don't have to. When I raise my hand to test the tension, my wrist twitches toward the nearest string by a whisper I didn't order. Subtle, I say. Sticky, Valeria says. Like rules with good fonts. I set the blade low and run the slowest draw known to polite society. The strings hum, very quietly, very pleased with themselves. as if they have recorded a victory in a ledger no one gets to audit. I finish the draw anyway. Sword unity means the blade moves and I realize I have already moved. The strings try to make that their idea. They don't get credit. For in, 6 out. The hum grows teeth the first time I move fast on purpose. A word shapes itself in the air without sound, and every joint in my legs hears it. Stop. I don't. Not because I am stubborn, I am, but because I don't let the word find purchase. I don't brace, don't prepare, don't load. I keep the movement so small the command can't find a hinge to grab. The step finishes and I'm already somewhere else when the order arrives to a party I left early. Order words, Valeria says. Hate those. Very bossy. Erebus. Observe. Right. I test. I say stop out loud. The air collects it like a stamp and presses it back into my knees. My calves tighten. My hip thinks about becoming a statue. I breathe to 6. The tension passes like a bad idea. I say walk. Nothing happens except me walking, which is the point but not helpful. I say kneel as a joke and my left leg immediately tries to make me hilarious. I catch the weight shift and turn the collapse into a forward hinge that looks like intention because now it is. The floor accepts the lie because the lie is smaller than pride. Helpful note, Valeria says, chirpy. Do not test, die. Not on the list, I say and mean it. The strings thicken. They are still polite about it. Nothing touches me. It's all suggestion and odds and a little nudge on the end of a habit. My eyebrow tries to obey for old time's sake. I ignore it. The eyebrow will file a grievance later. We will not read it. The hall opens into a square room with 4 tasteful pillars and no lamp at all because minimalism is very in this season. The threads web the far half of the chamber like a spider got its law degree. In the middle stands a plinth with a plate of frosted glass on top. Angled just so. I can see my outline if I want. I do not want. Words bloom on the glass in neat, dinner party script. Please follow instructions. No. Valeria says instantly. Seconded. I say. For a while we do the sensible thing, drills. 0-tell entries across a floor that believes it should get a vote. Silent cuts while a wall tries to suggest my shoulder would enjoy moving first. Breath counted while the room adds a phantom extra beat to tempt me into sync. I do not sync. I keep the drum I own. The glass is patient. It waits 5 minutes by an internal clock that believes in perfection, then prints a single word in larger type. Halt. My spine hears it. My knees hear it. Even my fingers consider it, the traitors. I don't argue. Arguments leak energy. I change the question. I let the blade's motion be the thing and allow the rest of me to remember I have already moved. No bells. No strings tightening. The word sticks to air and peels off with a little disappointed noise. The plate writes another in high praise of variety. Submit. Valeria hisses. Rude. I don't give it the courtesy of a flinch. I am already on the outside line of a pillar, already drifting my weight to a place the command doesn't own. It tries to route through the habit that likes to set the blade lower when I'm not sure. I don't give it a low to push. The blade stays where it needs to be. The body follows the blade. Erebus notes. Dry. Compulsion prefers preload. Then we don't preload, I say, and keep everything that matters starting in the cut, not in the plan. The plate tries down. Then yield. Then on your knees because it's feeling brave. The tone never changes. It isn't threat. It's assumption. The kind that shows up with place cards and a seating chart. And underneath the politeness, something heavier than manners. I try loosen harmony, not big, just enough to keep my ribs mine. The commands hit and slide. Harmony isn't a shield, it's good posture for the inside of a mind. The words want to own the hinge between intent and motion. Good posture leaves the hinge in my hands. The room notices I'm not playing and changes games. Threads go slack in front of me and twang tight behind, like I'm moving through a harp that thinks it runs the orchestra. The plate mirrors my outline and, very faintly, shows a second outline a quarter second ahead of me. The future it's planning. Chapter 981. The room that wanted to drive, too. Don't let it, Valeria says. Be late to your own prediction. Which is ridiculous and correct. I loosen the sequence I use when I'm tired. Eyes pick, shoulder agrees, hips deliver, and replace it with the one I brought into the last chapter. Cut first, discover the rest already happened. The prediction misses by the length of a thought. The plate fogs with confusion. The threads behind me sing a note that is not a triumph. Then the room stops, pretending at soft power. The plate goes blank. The air goes still. Every thread in the chamber lights blood red at once, and the word that comes has edges. Obey. The command doesn't aim at knees or hips or wrists. It goes for the spine and the part of the spine that leaks into the parts of the mind that like being told what to do because responsibility is heavy. For a heartbeat, my body leans toward convenient. I don't fight it with anger. Anger is loud and the thread hum loves loud. I put my breath in the space the word wants and leave it there until the temptation to let go passes. Then I move, zero tell, no preload, the way a cat decides it is somewhere else. The word hits nothing of mine and keeps going. It finds the pillar. The pillar doesn't have knees either. Good. Valeria says, voice bright and sharp. Again. Please again. I enjoy saying no to stupid nouns. The glass relents enough to try class over force. New words appear in pairs like bureaucrats in suits. Pause/wait. Hold/listen. Still/silent. I discover a mean trick. I can accept one without giving the other. I can be still without being silent. I can pause without waiting. I can hold without listening. Motion is a choice, not motion is also a choice. The room hates that both can be true at once if I keep my shoulders from volunteering. Language games, I say. Language hates being ignored. Valeria says happily. Keep doing it. The bridge of threads collapses and rebuilds behind the plinth with the glass. The glass rotates, showing me the far door, a clean rectangle in the opposite wall, then prints one more line as if this were a well-run test with a polite conclusion. Please proceed to the next chamber. I'm sure it means well, Valeria lies. Erebus. Decision. I don't move. I look at the way the threads frame that door. They don't quite touch it. They touch everything you might do as you approach it. Set your foot. Lift your hand. Lower your head a fraction. Read the sign. Align yourself to symmetry because that's what body's like. I step in on uglier geometry and low expectations. My eyes stay soft. My heel stays out of politics. My breath stays mine. No hum. No pull. The door doesn't turn into a lecture. It's just there. I don't thank it. Doors shouldn't be thanked for doing their jobs. As I pass the threshold, I feel it for the first time. A film on the air very different from the threads. Like silk over stone. Like a smile you don't trust. It has Lysandra's perfume in it. Sweet. Bright. That prickle you get when every color in the room feels like it's looking at you. But underneath the sweetness, the stone has straight lines. Not lust's coaxing. Not the sideways invite. This is the top-down kind of certainty that tells traffic where to go and breath when to fall in line. The next hall confirms the suspicion. It is narrower than it needs to be. The floor shows faint lanes that match the width of a shoulder. The ceiling has ridges spaced to the cadence of a good march. Even the light has a tempo if you let it. I don't. Memory crawls up out of a quieter day. Julius on a balcony in a city where the streets wouldn't stop arguing. He lifted his hand and the arguing paused. Not because people were impressed, not because they were afraid, but because everything from birds to buses stepped into the same beat for 2 holy seconds. Not peace. Order. The kind that left room for both kindness and law, until someone made a god angry and the god made sure Julius had no more balconies to stand on. I swallow around a throat that would prefer not to. The lanes on the floor feel familiar now that I have the name. I can choose not to step in them. I do. The hall pretends not to pout. You're making a face, Valeria says softly. I know whose bones are in the walls. I say, and hate how true it sounds. Not Julius himself. The shape of him. The gift that made a city breathe together, stolen, wrapped in perfume, used to make a tower pretend it is a throne. I test a simple thing. I press my palm against the wall and push, not with muscle, just intent. The stone answers with a tick I can feel in the bones of my hand. The same tick I felt when Julius turned a traffic junction into an orchestra. Absolute control. Not mind control. Everything control. Gravity with opinions. Angles with a captain. Doors that vote. The film of Lysandra rides over it like a delicate glove. Lust sells. Order installs. The hall tries one last time to set the cadence for me. The ridges in the ceiling pulse with a beat I could borrow. I don't borrow. I breathe 4 in, 6 out, and let that be the only metronome anyone gets to own in this body. At the far end of the corridor, glass thickens into a door that looks like it knows me. The handle shapes itself into something my hand would like to trust. The film on the air turns brighter. Party voice, velvet tablecloth, all your favorite people already seated. Do not, Valeria says, deadly cheerful. I wasn't going to, I say, and this time I don't even want to lie. I stop just short and listen. Not with ears. With the part of me that hates being told what to think. The film whispers invitations. The stone beneath gives me the tiniest tick of a salute, like a loyal bureaucrat trapped at a bad wedding. It clicks together all at once, like a puzzle that never was a puzzle once you had the last piece. This isn't lust. I say, voice low. It's wearing lust like perfume. Underneath, Erebus finishes, for once not clinical at all. Order. Empyrean order. I say, and the door hears me. Every thread in the walls lights up at once. The ridges in the ceiling hammer the same beat. The glass in front of me fogs with words that aren't ink or light but wait. Kneel. Chapter 982. Julius Slatemark. Chapter 982, Julius Slatemark. I kept my hand an inch from the glass door and breathed. 4 in, 6 out. The air tasted like perfume over stone. Lust on the surface. Something straighter, stronger, and far older underneath. Empyrean order. The moment you say the name, the room stops pretending not to listen. Arthur? Valeria murmured along my forearm, her voice bright but sharp. You're making the face you make right before you decide to pick a fight with a building. I'm remembering, I said. The threads of compulsion in the walls brightened, singing in a unified chorus. The ridges in the ceiling picked up a soft, insistent beat. The glass door before me fogged, and the word flashed again, polite as a guillotine. Kneel. I didn't humor it. I let my own breath be the only rhythm that counted in my bones, and my step the only vote my body cast. The command searched for a hinge of fear or habit to grab onto. It found none. The fog thinned. The glass cleared. Under my hand, the jam ticked again. A faint salute, patient and tired. Julius, I said, because names matter, and this one was the key. The tower answered. The entire room changed its mind about what it was. The walls pulled away without moving. The ceiling didn't lift, yet the air sat higher, cleaner. The cloying perfume of lust's power peeled away from the architecture like old, sun-rotted wallpaper. What remained was brass and cool stone and the clean, steady hum of things that like being on time. The threads of compulsion faded, replaced by lines you only see if you've stood on rooftops at dawn. Street grids and sight lines and the tidy, engineered spine of a city that has learned perfect posture. Valeria whistled, a low, appreciative sound. He made the inside of a place sit up straight. A balcony slid into existence from the far wall, the way a half-forgotten memory walks into the middle of a conversation and everyone intuitively makes room. It was made of polished stone, with a rail worn smooth by hands that had carried plans, not weapons. It wasn't grand. It was designed. Its view wasn't of a skyline, but of the idea of one. Lanes, flows, and the complex intersections where arguments would happen, unless someone who loved the city enough got there early to keep them from starting. Bootsteps, measured and quiet. Not loud. Respect doesn't need to shout. He wasn't shining. He wasn't glowing. He simply arrived like a conclusion you can't argue with. Julius Slatemark looked younger than the portraits make him. Not boy young. Decision young. His hair was the color of late wheat. His coat built to carry a city's weather, with no jewels or chains of office. The famous Slatemark mark on his brow was faint as a scar you forget you have until it aches in the rain. His eyes were not kind. They were not cruel. They were the calm of a man who has counted to the end of a problem and then started over, just to make sure he didn't lie to himself the first time. He stopped a pace from the rail and set one hand on the stone. The rail accepted the hand like it had done so 1,000 times. The air around him did what air does around people who have been obeyed by storms and by streets. It waited. Well, Valeria said into my mind, her voice bright but very, very small. That's not terrifying at all. Erebus didn't speak. He didn't need to. His silence felt like a recorder being set on a table. History was happening. I looked at the man who had taught the world to count power without flattering it, who had defined the manacores so a child could know what they were reaching for, who had written the steps when the sky was still trying to be a poem. The man Luna had chosen first. The weight the Slatemark name borrowed from and paid back every single day. 100 things crowded behind my teeth. Questions. Thanks. Complaints on behalf of all the people crushed by the weight of a perfect system. Jokes I would not tell because jokes are air and this moment was stone. I breathed. 4 in, 6 out. He turned. The world did not shiver. It aligned. The balcony became a balcony because he was standing on it. The room became a room because someone was in it who knew where rooms were supposed to go in a life. He looked at me like a ledger looks at an entry it recognizes. His gaze slid past the tricks I couldn't use here and weighed the one thing I had brought that mattered. Unity. Center. The fact that my blade no longer argued with my shoulder. Something that might have been approval didn't touch his mouth. It barely touched the air. Julius Slatemark, I said, because saying a name correctly is a kind of bow I can afford to make. His head tilted a degree, as if he were listening to the rhythm of a city I couldn't hear. Then his eyes met mine. He did not look pleased. He did not look angry. He looked involved. Arthur Nightingale, he said, his voice as level as a metronome. You felt it. The frame under the perfume. Empyrean order, I said. Not her power. Yours. Stolen, wrapped, and used to drive this tower. It is a good skeleton, he admitted, his voice even. Even dressed poorly, it holds. He stepped away from the rail, and the air agreed to be still. He studied me the way I study footwork, hips, shoulders, breath, where the eyes actually live when they pretend to be polite. You carry yourself like a man who has stopped arguing with his blade, he said. Good. Unity buys you honesty. Honesty buys you options. I'm learning to be smaller, I said. Less talk before the motion. And less apology after, he said. And there it was again, the smallest tilt of his head, like a conductor testing a hall's reverb. You came looking for the source of the tower. You found a story instead. Ask your questions. I hadn't planned to, but they crowded forward anyway. Luna, I said, the name feeling both intimate and ancient. You were her first contractor. But this place tells me her origin is older than your oath. It is, he said. Older and younger. If time were a road you could trust, I would give you mile markers. It isn't. Tell me anyway. He nodded once. There was an Arthur before you. Not of our world, but one where our lives were printed as entertainment. He carried a great guilt for that, and a great love for people he could not touch. He refused to remain a reader, using a gift you now wear in pieces, Mythweaver, when it still listened to him like a child to a father. He shaped Luna's soul from a story that should not have been able to breathe. Then he spent what grace he had left to send her down our river. Not when it was easy, but when it mattered. To you, I said quietly. To this city. To a boy with too much structure and not enough pulse. Julius confirmed, without a trace of self-pity. She made a contract with me on a morning when the city had 3 heartbeats and none of them agreed. She held me together long enough for me to hold us all together. That was her first job. She has been doing it ever since. I pictured it then. Luna, younger, with wheat fields behind her, offering her hand to a man who already carried a formal, structured future between his shoulder blades. It fit. Still hurt in a way I couldn't name. And what did you do for the world? I asked because I needed to hear it from the man who did it. For a time, he said. I made Earth boring. The simple sentence had a weight that could crack the floor. He looked past me to the old city routes he once kept clear. I stood on corners and raised my hand. Not to command minds. To set a cadence. Freight ran on time. Hospitals didn't lose the seconds they couldn't afford. Small arguments ended in time for people to make dinner. When demons pushed up from the cracks in the world, the ground under our feet refused to help them. How long? As long as it took to teach the city to walk by itself, he said. Until the day something arrived that I could not set a beat for. A demon lord, I said. Divine rank. Yes. He didn't lower his eyes. He didn't raise them. Lysandra wore her courtesy like silk over wires. I lived because the city needed me to live. I died when that need no longer convinced the math. He watched me, seeing the ghost of relief hiding in my next thought. He didn't punish it. I lost to a category of being, not to a person. And also, it should not. It did both, which was deeply annoying. I shifted my weight, suddenly feeling like a student again. I expected to meet a legend and feel competition, I admitted. Instead, I just want to take notes. Good, he said. Then take them with your feet. He pushed off from the rail. The room straightened itself by a degree I couldn't see. Draw when you're ready. Chapter 983. The Emperor's Beat. Valeria woke in my hand, humming with a bright, sharp energy. No pressure, she said in my mind. Just history watching. Proceed, Erebus added, and somehow the single dry word helped. Draw when you're ready, Julia said. I was ready. I drew. The motion was the one I had just spent an eternity perfecting. No preload, no heel stamp, no whisper from my shoulder. The blade was already moving, and I was simply invited along for the ride. It was a perfect zero-tell cut, the kind of attack that had served me against men and monsters. Julius didn't flinch. He didn't counter. He let my blade arrive, and then he showed me the tax I didn't even know I was paying. He shifted nothing. He simply subtracted something. A patch of space that would have made my cut feel comfortable and clever simply wasn't there anymore. The line of the cut still existed. The edge still landed. But it felt awkward, ill-fitting, like a well-tailored suit that had shrunk in the wash. It stopped being safe to be in love with the motion. I adjusted, my body automatically seeking a more stable line for the recovery. He stole the next convenience, too. Every time I moved, the room declined to assist by exactly the amount of help I would have asked for without knowing it. The angles were still angles. The timing still worked. But the ground, my old, reliable partner, refused to conspire with me. Your sword is fine, Julius said, his voice even. Your assumptions are noisy. He stepped. It wasn't fast. It wasn't slow. He simply arrived in front of my guard without my eyes ever getting a receipt for the journey. His blade was suddenly occupying a space I had been saving for a later thought. I parried out of pure, trained habit. The parry worked, and in doing so, it told him everything he needed to know about my training, my reflexes, and my fears. He didn't punish the parry. He simply edited the context around it so that punishing it would have been redundant. You still answer, he said. Now start. I tried to start. I tried to steal the half-beat that had been my bread and butter for years. But he refused to publish one. I tried to initiate to be the first question in the room. He was already standing in my start, like a person who had arrived early for a meeting and brought their own coffee. My blade's point landed a breath from his coat and simply lost its argument. It wasn't blocked. It just became less true than the firmness of the place he had chosen to be. Again, he said. I changed my tempo. He took tempo off the table. I tried to create an angle. He shortened the angle until it was a question that couldn't afford to ask itself out loud. He was quietly, methodically showing me how often I leaned on the world to complete my sentences for me. You can write, he said, his blade a quiet line between us. Or you can let punctuation do the work. Punctuation is very busy. Stop asking it for help. I took that personally. I stopped asking. I disengaged and reset, my mind racing. All my advantages, my speed, my half-beat counters, my ability to read an opponent's rhythm, were built on the premise that my opponent had a rhythm to begin with. Julius had none. He was a state of being. I breathed in for out 6. I stopped trying to be clever. I cut without trusting friction, or echo, or the floor's good graces. The blade felt heavier, but in an honest way, not a tired way. It landed where it landed. My feet accepted the verdict of the stone. He nodded once, a minimal academic gesture. Better. We went 3 exchanges without contact. Then 4. Then 9. He never swung his blade, and yet somehow I never owned the room. His presence was a curve that denied all my favorite lanes. My shoulders wanted to grumble and get involved, to add some power, some drama. I did not let them vote. Again, he said, and I heard a kind of instructional kindness in it. This wasn't a fight. It was a lecture with consequences. We ended the lesson without a single drop of blood being spilled, which felt both wrong and exactly right. He stepped back to the rail. The balcony remembered him and held still, the way good bread holds a knife. The original Arthur made Luna, he said, as if we had never stopped talking. He sent her to me. I did my part with her help, for long enough. Now the world has you in it, with your guilt and your jokes and your habit of doing the right thing only after you're done arguing with yourself about it. You make it sound simple, I said, catching my breath. It isn't, he confirmed. That's why it works. He glanced toward the threads of order sleeping in the wall. Lust wears this place like a decoration. She thinks a beat is a collar. She's wrong. A beat is a promise. You keep it for the people who need you. You break the collar. You died when she stepped in, I said, because that part still mattered. I died when a category of being arrived. He corrected me patiently. Don't make me your floor. Make me your ladder. Then climb. He looked me over one last time and I saw a message under the evaluation. We are on the same side of something that does not care. Rest, he said. Then we'll make your shoulders forget even more of their bad habits. Yes, sir, I said, because some people you don't pretend to be cool around. Valeria's hum was bright with a new kind of energy. He likes you, or he likes yelling at you. Both are forms of mentorship. Proceed, Erebus said. I rested against a wall that was now proud to be a wall. I drank water that tasted like work. Then I stood, rolled my wrists, and accepted the day I had been given. Again, Julia said. We both smiled a little. That was new. Again, I answered. Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today.